Welcome to an all-new Restoration Today podcast brought to you by DOT. Replace heavy jugs plus get better mold cleaning power with less odor and less product. DOT Cleaner features dilute oxidation technology powered by DOT's patented NT7 molecule. Get a free sample of DOT Mold Stain Cleaner and 20% off your first order at dotcleaner.com. A little does a lot. Hey there, thanks for checking out another episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today, I am excited to be joined by Tom McGuire, who is the founder of Large Loss Mastery. If you see him at shows, he is always smiling, always kind, always chatting with people. He does some amazing hands-on training. He does large loss simulation, and you can go to these courses, and he's done projects like the World Trade Center in 1993 and the Pentagon. And if there was a big loss at Penn State and the city of New Orleans, he finds these amazing projects to simulate and teach restorers how to handle these big, large losses. He also brings in a variety of instructors from throughout the industry to help branch out on what he's teaching. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining me. I am excited to chat with you. So tell us a little bit about your background in the industry.
Michelle, it's always a pleasure. Seems like I've seen you all over the place the last 3 weeks.
Right. Yes.
It's been good though. People are out doing things, enjoying life a little bit, getting out to different shows and different conventions and stuff. So it's been really, really good.
Yes.
My background in the restoration world started back in 1986. And back when I'm pretty much all commercial. I've done some residential, but it's really my personal residential or residents or, friends after a hurricane, all that type of stuff. And so, and then some very large residences, which I wouldn't really call a normal residential home. They're more like a small hotel. And so I started out in 1986. There was very little national restoration going on. It was so new. The industry was, just 5 to 6 years old at that time, and if even that, because prior to 1986, just to give you a reference, IRCRC is where you went to get your certificate for carpet cleaning. Mm-hmm. There weren't any training classes on fire damage restoration and disaster recovery and everything that we have now. The industry is just blowing up, and if you think about that's only 35 years. And in an industry, like this, you would think it'd been around for, 100 years or something, but it really hasn't. And so I've been very, very blessed over the years to have worked with amazing people, much more talented than I am. I try to be a sponge and try to emulate and take from my mentors what they give and hopefully pass that on to everybody when we're in our large loss mastery classes or with our estimating tools, the Edge Plus and the Edge Basic. We're having a lot of fun just bringing the best practices of the industry to everyone. And so large loss mastery isn't just about large loss. It's really about the best practices of restoration and business. And my theory is if you're doing all of your losses right by the best practices, then you're always going to be doing okay. And so we try to show everybody the best way to do large loss, but also restoration in general. And then we plug in our new estimating tools, the Edge and the Edge Plus, which just has sped up estimating and scoping projects. It's taken it to another level. And so we're having a lot of fun with that. And so started in 86 and been all over the world. Did projects in Singapore, Kuwait, Costa Rica, in Canada and Mexico. And so it's been a wild ride. It ain't over, but so we just it's I'm having fun now. I've always had fun with the restoration world, but I think I'm having more fun now because I'm training and being very creative with everything that we're doing, and then bringing in in new tools that these guys can use like right now. That's the key, is not just talking about stuff and theorizing on things and all of that. It's about giving when you leave the class, you have tools and information that you can use immediately. And so there isn't any, we get right into it when we get into the classes. And so it's a lot of fun.
So what was your inspiration behind starting Large Loss Mastery after you've been doing big losses for years and years? What prompted you to start this and help train other restorers on this?
Well, I started out with it, this would have been 5 years ago. This is my 5-year anniversary this year. And, start out and you don't anticipate that 2 years out of those 5 years, you're going to be in a COVID situation, but
yeah,
it is what it is. And, and I was inspired by Lauren Reed, who was, a mentor of mine at Munters and at Pure Clean and throughout most of my life. And Lauren passed in 5 years ago. And he passed 6 days before I did my first course. So he never got to see what we had put together and talked about and what he had inspired me to do. And so that's where it all started. It was with I think we were at the Ram Sports Bar in Chicago. Okay. I don't think it's open anymore, but it was this big sports bar, and we were meeting there. And he was like, "Tom, you should think about this." And I said, I've been thinking about it, and here's my outline, here's my white paper on what I was thinking about doing. And then then we just started plugging in pieces and then my next step was to talk to Mickey Lee and to Brad Key. And I started to really put together the foundation for everything, and the rest kind of fell in place. And I had to lock myself up for about 3.5 months for writing. And I never realized, how tough it is to, when you're writing a manual, which the manual is about 400 pages, but I had to lock myself up, and I literally had to do one chapter every 7 days. And I had to literally just like close up and like sit there and go, but after you get through that, then you just update and you just keep moving forward. It's ever changing. Every one of my classes is a little bit different than the class before. And because of the case study that we'll be working on, whether at Kennedy Space Center, or whether we're at the Reagan Library, or whether we're at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, or wherever we are, the Field Museum in Chicago, we always try to choose some challenging projects, but also we break them down to where they're in component or compartments where even if you just started in the restoration business, and we have guys that come into our classes that just opened their business literally that week, and or a guy that never been in restoration before. He was selling cars last week, and now what's this all about? And so, but once they leave the class, they're on a level playing field of sorts with everyone in the class. And it's designed like that. So we break down big projects into smaller projects. So, because that's really all a big project is. It's just a series of smaller projects. So if you're doing smaller projects right, you can do the big projects right also. And the only difference is you need resources. The only thing that separates the big companies from the small companies is resources such as financing, equipment, personnel, and then the resource of expertise and experience. And that's if you can overcome those 4 things, you can manage any size project. I tell everybody in the class, when we did the World Trade Center in 1993 after the first bomb, I was with MF Bank, the restoration company, and probably one of the most talented group of people that I've ever been blessed to have worked with. And they're still, most of them are still in the industry, still players in the industry, still movers and shakers in the industry as consultants and presidents and owners and all that kind of stuff. And so we I kind of lost my thought there, but
that's all right.
But at the World Trade Center, it was just an amazing thing. And so what I tell people in our class is, you think about that job. It was 8.8 million square feet, and we had 16 calendar days to complete the job. We managed over 3,500 people a day.
Whew.
You would think that would just be a monster company.
Yeah.
But yet we might have been maybe a $10 million company at that point. Yes. And there still hasn't been a project that big in our business. And there have been bigger dollar projects. There's been some monster drying projects and things like that. But 8.8 million square feet is still one of the biggest projects that's ever been done. And I tell everybody that was a $10 million company. And so don't ever think that you don't do large loss. You just haven't done it yet. And so what we want to do is prepare you for when that moment happens, you're ready. Because like with anything, you don't want to be preparing or learning how to do something when you're in the middle of it. And so the time to prepare and the time to get ready for expanding your business, getting into bigger projects is now, and not when you're in the middle of it.
Yes.
I still get those phone calls from guys who are like, we just got our first loss and everything. It's like, okay, well, what did we talk about? Blah, blah, blah. And we have a lot of fun with it. And almost every class or somebody that comes out of it and they get a big loss right off the bat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How do you pick the venues that you're going to and the losses that you're simulating? You've done a lot of different really cool big places.
I always, my main things is I will always look at everything and always ask myself, what if, how much, and how long? And I do that everywhere that I go. What if, how much, and how long? What if something happened? I'm walking through Orlando International Airport and I'm looking around and that happens in every airport I go to. If it's a new airport I've never been in, I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. Look at that ceiling. What would we do? How long would it take? And if it was a fire, if it was a flood, whatever the situation, mold, mildew, COVID, whatever the situation, what would we do? How long would it take? And how long would it cost? Or how much would it cost? And so when we look at everything that way, all of a sudden we start to develop these skills of like, okay, we can, put together a number very quickly. And so we go over that right off the bat with all of our classes. And so we want everybody thinking like that when they leave. We want them to look around where they're at and think, okay, what if, how much, and how long?
Okay. So I know you talked about developing the curriculum originally. I thought that was interesting. I've heard something about how successful people really structure their days. And there are some big authors that know to get to a book, they have to sit down and write no less than 2,000 words a day. And that's how they get a book done. And so good for you, because that's a lot of writing. And I am a writer and I couldn't do that. So good for you. But how do you develop the individual curriculum based on the losses though? I mean, I think that must be kind of intensive as well. Are you researching the structures and
Well, a lot of times the structures that I pick are just because I always wanted to do them.
Okay.
But I hadn't actually done them. But now we did start out at the Superdome, which was a project that we had when I was with Munters. But really it's all of the what if, how much, and how long, with all those places that I've gone to or I see and I'm like, okay, wow, what would it be like to do that project? And so what I love about, say, for AT&T Stadium, for example, you can break it down into where you have restaurants, you have, hotel some of the stadiums, you'll have you'll have a little bit of everything, restaurants and smaller spaces that these guys are going to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so what I do is I look at it and I put together, based on what if, how much, and how long, on exactly how we want to do that specific job. Now, the curriculum stays similar throughout each class, but it changes only because of the differing case studies. Okay. But I just kind of pick places that I always wanted to do. Yep. And then my favorite is here at Cape Canaveral. I'm a space junkie, and I love everything about it. And so I actually, when I have a block and I can't that thought process, you can't find that next idea, I'll go out there and kind of sit in the middle of everything and just listening to the crowd and to the music and just take some notes and come up with what's next. And so it's that's probably the funnest thing for me is the case studies.
Okay.
And so I look around, it's like I just, and I grew up at Lake Tahoe and Carson City and Reno and Nevada in general. But, and so I've always wanted to get back out there. So I was really disappointed when we had to bump that into June of next year. Yeah. And so really kind of bummed about that, but I was looking forward. We would just wrapped up at Tahoe this last week. And so.
Yeah, I remember you were going to go right from, I think, the experience there, and now the fires and all of that. That's a bummer, but hopefully that means that you'll get good attendance in June. So let's talk about estimating for large losses. So what kind of help are you giving restorers in the estimating realm? And then talk a little bit about how the edge ties into all of that.
Well, again, we get back to, the what if, how much and how long. And when it comes to estimating, we've complicated things quite a bit. We have incredible tools, for tracking projects, for tracking progress, for everything, but we don't really have, for estimating time of materials. We've kind of gotten to where we're, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. T&M Pro is a great program. And Greg Dillon's a good friend. I give him a little plug here, but what we've done with the Edge is we've taken all the information and knowledge that we've gained over the last 35, 40 years and plugged it in. And it's all based on data, historical data, and it's given us some shortcuts. And so if we know the square footage footprint of the damaged area, the type of building that is damaged, the type of damage, in certain particulars of the project, which we have everything built in. So you just click on what applies to the project. And when you enter in that information and you get your production rate is the number one thing. This is the most common thing in estimating. It's been around for centuries since they put together the pyramids. Production rate is what one person can do in a period of time. And so even when they put together the pyramids, they thought, okay, you had a 1 ton rock, a 2 ton rock, a 3 ton rock. How many people does it take to move those different size rocks? That tells you how many people you need to build the pyramids. Same thing with mowing lawns. If I have 100 acres of lawn to mow, the number one thing I need to know is how much can one person mow in a period of time. And so once I know that, then it tells me how many mowers I need, tell me how many people I need, tell me how much gas I'm going to need, how many trucks, the whole everything. And so what we've done is we've rolled all of that into the Edge Plus and the Edge Basic. The Edge Plus is the complete tool where you can put together an estimate, a scope of work, and your contract in less than 30 minutes. Once you get your damage assessment done and you know the square footage of the affected area, what type of damage it is, and we know our production rate, we can estimate any project very, very quickly. And it's all just based on historical data. And what I love about it is we're constantly testing it, because it's not just for large loss. It also can be used on mold, can be used on residential, and we're also developing some instructions on how to use it strictly for water damage only. And we're also working with Chuck DeWald and his E3, and we're hopefully going to be integrating with him somewhere along the line. Integration is one of those things that just doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. And so, which I'm finding out, I always tell my developer, hey, that should be pretty easy. And he said, like, Tom, there is nothing developing that is easy. And so, and every time I say that, it takes an extra 2 weeks. And so, and so the edge is, it takes all of that historical data and gives you the ability to estimate, projects of any size, anywhere, anytime. And it is just a lot of fun, and it's deadly accurate. When guys that are using it, on all of their projects, and they'll say, we went back and looked at old projects that we did, and what took us 2 days to do, put together in 2 days, now they did in about 20 minutes, and they were only 5 to 6% off. It's in one way or the other. We might be 5% higher or 5% lower. And so it's really exciting. If anybody, and you can use it. And the beautiful thing is it's very easy to use. It doesn't take a lot of training. We have some videos that go with it. 30-minute video, and you're ready to rock and roll with it. And if you just come back and look at it, you don't need to sit through 2 days of training. And then if you don't use it, you have to come back, and a lot of software, if you don't use it, then you have to go get retrained again, because it's very, very complicated. I'm a keep it simple, stupid guy. And so I want a tool that works very effectively, very quickly, and it doesn't take there's not a lot of moving parts to make problems for people using it. And so I want it to be very user friendly.
So it sounds like people would potentially even use this in place of using like Xactimate or Symbility. Is that right? Is that the case, that they could potentially use it instead? Or are they using it a little bit in conjunction? What does that look like?
Well, I never like to say that we're going to take the place of any other software, but we are an option. Okay. And I believe that in the restorer world, you want to have all options in your pocket. Like I said, I'm a space freak, and NASA and SpaceX, and none of those guys do anything unless they have redundant systems and they have a backup. They never put themselves in a situation where they don't have a backup system or an option, for different areas. It is the fastest estimating tool in the industry, and it's exciting. Ben Justice and I have been having fun, and we're going to start doing some Zoom calls and bringing people in, and we're going to be taking the edge to its edge. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. And we've done some head-to-head. We were at RIA. We were on stage together, had a blast with that. And, but for what Ben had to do an Xactimate for the same square footage in the same area, I did in 18 minutes, 3 estimates. And so it's just a fraction of the time that it took to do, and these were just hotel rooms. So we were just doing 400 hotel rooms at the Gaylord. And so we had a lot of fun with that. And because there's a place for everything. There's a place for all software and all tools. This is primarily a time and materials tool. Mm-hmm. And so, it's one of those things that once you use it, it's really cool, and it's fully mobile. You can use it on any device. In fact, there's times where, if I can't sleep at night, I'll turn it on just to say, man, look at that. Look at how far we've come in 5 years, because 5 years ago, we when we started out the class, we were doing everything the long way. Even a year and a half ago, it was the long way. And so this is, now the edge is plugged into what we train. And so when you walk away from one of our classes, you're ready to rock and roll. And so it's an awesome tool. But yeah, when I have sleepless nights, I'll pull it up on my phone and be like, man, look at that. Plug stuff in. It's like, wow, look at that. It works,
That shows you're passionate about it. That's awesome. You're doing the right thing then if you're doing that. I also wouldn't want to compete against Ben Justice in doing any sort of estimating. And the fact that you still beat him says something, because if anybody knows how to do Xactimate, it's Ben. So
we didn't have it wasn't a one beat the other. It was we were doing a side-by-side comparison, because the number one thing that most people don't think of is we're going back to the production rate. Production rate exists in every estimating tool, not just the edge. The edge just is perfecting it. What Xactimate is also based on production rate, and in the Xactimate world, it's called yield. And so what we were really aiming to do there was to show that these two tools are very, very similar, and that there's similarities between time and materials and Xactimate are more similar than they are different. And in that the edge is just the quickest way to get to your budget number. Obviously, you have to do the damage assessment. You have to know your square footage, of the damaged area. You have to know all the details of the job to plug into the edge. You can't just pull things out of thin air, but I can have enough information on a building. For example, if we had something at the Gaylord, all the information that we put together on the Gaylord for that exercise, we got offline.
Okay.
We got it off of Wikipedia, and just by going to the website, they tell you all the square footage of the rooms and all of that. And so there's a lot of details that you get even before you get to the project. And so, we do a lot of mapping and measuring, and all that is good. But I think most of that is really, when it comes down to it, really is supporting the invoice, and not necessarily what you need to do all the time for estimating.
Wow. Good for you. I love it. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time. And anybody who's listening or watching this, you can find out more on largelossmastery.com. You can see all of Tom's courses and all the things. He's also at a lot of industry events, so be sure to stop by and say hello to him if he has a booth or he's speaking or whatever. Tom, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle. It's always my pleasure.
For more Restoration Today, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, or find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts.